April 22nd, 1970. 2 years after Professor Paul Ehrlich published The Population Bomb, he was invited to speak at the first Earth Day in the United States. Paul Ehrlich shared his doomsday vision of an overpopulated planet with a free-spirited and bell-bottomed clad congregation.
We have then an extremely serious world demographic situation. The population situation is bad beyond what any demographer even dreamed of 25 years ago. What about the resource situation in the world? Well, the most important resource to all of us, of course, is food. We have 3.6 billion people in the world today. Roughly 50% of them are hungry in one sense or another. This year, somewhere between 10 and 20 million people will starve to death on this planet. Last year, the same. The year before that, the same. Next year, almost certainly more and more and more. That's the answer to the question that's often raised. When will the population food crunch hit? Well, it hit a lot of people already. It's going to hit a lot more people this year. Should you think you're safe in the United States, you are very sadly mistaken.
The dark rhetoric profoundly contrasted visions of happy college students wielding signs and singing songs by the fifth dimension up and down the city streets throughout America. The first Earth Day was no day for joyful celebration. April 22nd, 1970 was much more of an eve of destruction than Age of Aquarius, according to the speaker and biologist Barry Commoner.
This planet is threatened with destruction, and we who live in it with death. The heavens reek, the waters below are foul, children die in infancy, and we and the world, which is our home, live on the brink of nuclear annihilation. We are in a crisis of survival.
The urgency in the so-called polluted air was palpable. Founder of Earth Day, Senator Gaylord Nelson from Wisconsin, had been sounding the alarm on protecting the environment for at least a year before he was able to grow his pet project into a national demonstration.
The crowd heard calls for revolution, calls for working within the system. Earth Day's founder and co-sponsor, Senator Gaylord Nelson, offered a more specific plan.
We elect an ecology Congress as the 92nd Congress, a Congress that will build bridges between our citizens and between men and nature's systems, instead of building more highways and dams and new weapon systems that escalate the arms race. Environment is all of America and its problems. It's the rats in the ghetto. It's a hungry child in a land of affluence. It is housing that's not worthy the name and neighborhoods not fit to inhabit. Environment is a problem perpetuated by expenditures of tens of billions of dollars a year on the Vietnam War instead of on our decaying, crowded, congested, polluted urban areas that are inhuman traps for millions of people.
At least Senator Nelson was looking out for the livelihood of people. Many of the speakers featured throughout the country at various Earth Day celebrations were slightly less interested in the fate of humanity, like Dr. James Bonner, for example.
When we look around our Earth and see the ability that man has shown to devastate our Earth, it makes one think that the whole world would be better off if man hadn't been invented.
The anti-human message of Earth Day was clear. Humanity was the villain draining the planet's resources and manipulating it for our own selfish desires. One of the most prominent issues discussed on the first Earth Day was how to stop humans from bringing about global cooling.
At the moment, the planet is cooling off because we have put so much crud into the atmosphere. The warming trend that the CO2 addition caused up till 1940 has been overpowered. The turbidity of the atmosphere over the Central Pacific has increased 30% in the last decade. According to Reed Bryson, the meteorologist at the University of Wisconsin who is tracking this most closely, we are beginning to revert to a weather pattern in this country which we saw in the early 1800s. If we do that, our agricultural productivity will suffer a great deal because agriculture is tremendously dependent on the weather.
In 1970, global warming wasn't even a concern. Hippies and politicians actually believed that the Earth was getting too cold, and the media ate it up. Newsweek parroted the Earth Day participants' concerns in writing,
One theory assumes that the Earth's cloud cover will continue to thicken as more dust, fumes, and water vapor are belched into the atmosphere by industrial smokestacks and jet planes. Screened from the sun's heat, the planet will cool, the water vapor will fall and freeze, and a new ice age will be born.
Ecologist Kenneth Watt even predicted that we would see an ice age as early as the year 2000.
The world has been chilling sharply for about 20 years. If present trends continue, the world will be about 4 degrees colder than the global mean temperature in 1990, but 11 degrees colder in the year 2000. This is about twice what it would take to put us into an ice age.
Obviously, we have not entered into the next ice age. But it's important to remember that many reputable people believed in the less than accurate alarmism that was promoted on the very first Earth Day. In fact, a very prominent and trusted news anchor didn't think Earth Day went far enough.
The greatest disappointment today was the degree of non-participation across the country, and especially the absence of adults. And the young people who did participate were in a skylark mood, which contrasted rudely with the messages of apocalypse. Those who ignored Earth Day, well, that's one thing. Those who ignore the crisis of our planet, that's quite another. The indifferent have missed the point that to clean up the air and earth and water in the few years science says is left to us means personal involvement and may mean personal sacrifice, the likes of which Americans have never been asked to make in time of peace. The sense of today's teach-in was that America must undertake a revolution in its way of life. Affluent America will, we were told, almost certainly have to scale down its standards of living, give up having as many cars, as many children, as many cans, as many conveniences, as much conspicuous consumption. Someday, we heard today, the world will be a better place if it listens and acts. But in the meantime, perhaps for a generation or more, it will be frighteningly costly to each of us to clean up the mess each of us has made. But the cost of not doing so is more frightening. That's what today's message really means. And those who marched today, and those who slept, and those who scorned, are in this thing together. What is at stake, and what is in question, is survival. This is Walter Cronkite. Good night.
Another great disappointment to the early environmental movement was the man who claimed to play an integral role in the creation of Earth Day. The story of the first Earth Day in America wouldn't be complete without mentioning the figure that eco-activists have consistently tried to hide in the shadows. Ira Einhorn was the master of ceremonies at the first Earth Day event in Philadelphia. Although he would tell you that his role was much larger, he maintains that he was the first person to come up with the idea for Earth Day. The Unicorn, as he called himself, was a captivating speaker. He was well known on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania for his tie-dye attire and message of peace and love. His saccharine preaching was ironic, coming from someone who filled his diary with passages about inflicting pain on the women in his life. Some of the disturbing excerpts include,
"To kill what you love seems so natural that strangling Rita last night seems so right. Violence creeps over my body when I reach towards the destruction of Judy. Violence always marks the end of a relationship. To beat a woman, what joy."
Ira Einhorn's diary entries predated his worst assault on his girlfriend, Holly Maddox. Holly was in the process of ending her relationship with Einhorn when she mysteriously went missing. He told police she simply had gone out to the neighborhood co-op to pick up some tofu and sprouts and never returned. But of course, that wasn't the case. 18 months later, the truth was revealed.
Einhorn was well known in Philadelphia, where he once ran for mayor. Police found Maddox's corpse stuffed in a trunk in a closet at his Philadelphia home.
Ira Einhorn, the self-proclaimed founder of Earth Day, had fatally beaten and composted his girlfriend. Although he would never admit that. He claims Hawley was killed by CIA agents who framed him for the crime because he knew too much about the agency's paranormal military research. Some said that was as believable as the impending Ice Age. Today, Ira Einhorn sits in jail serving a life sentence, no doubt spewing an unnecessary amount of CO2 into the atmosphere. As he sits behind bars, the pioneering Earth Day enthusiast serves as a fitting symbol of just how little some environmentalists view humanity. The self-proclaimed creator of Earth Day turned out to be the most anti-human of them all. April 22nd, 1970 may be remembered by the majority of people as the day America came together to clean up trash. Unfortunately, its legacy has proved to be far more ominous. Since that day in 1970, the scare tactics and shallow prophecies have persisted and have become even more dangerous. We analyze some of the most terrifying Earth Day predictions ever made in the next episode.
Glenn Beck.